The Sports Lounge, brought to you by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino, with hosts John Wiener and Ray Coleman. Welcome to the Lounge.
This is the Sports Lounge, where we don't stand on ceremony. Down in New Orleans last week, we're back here in the Jack. Ray Coleman, good to see you. We missed you last week.
Look, I could tell y'all had a phenomenal time down there. Yeah. Doesn't look like y'all needed my assistance.
Doesn't look like we missed you that much.
Trust me, I was watching. I was missing y'all. More importantly, I was missing the time that y'all were having down there for sure.
Big time in New Orleans last week. Big shout out to Desi Vegas, where we did our Sports Lounge New Orleans recap show. Did 3 shows last week. Had a bunch of fun, but we're back here in the Sports Lounge here on Mill Street in Jackson. We got a lot to get to today. Of course, our starters. We'll have our Table for Two segment. Everybody's favorite. Going to hit this and that. And I did the deep dish NBA draft week. I know you're fired up about.
Oh man, absolutely. We're going to talk some legends, living legends that have changed the game for sure. Definitely looking forward to diving into that draft class.
Speaking of legends, Brett Dawson with theathletic.com is going to join us, put out the piece on Anthony Davis in the country this week, and we'll talk with Brett and some game time at the end of the show, and we got an interesting one. We're going to box.
Getting a little physical, man. Stick and move today. Stick and move, man.
Rock 'em, sock 'em, robots coming your way. We'll have our parting shots at the end of the show. Of course, we're on bashbrothersmedia.com and all your social media platforms. Right, let's get into the starters. In Mississippi State right now in the College World Series, they win their opening game. Been some rain there midweek, but when you look at this Mississippi State team, now this is the 3rd straight time they've been in Omaha and won that first game. So I want to ask you, what would it mean and how important is it for Mississippi State to go ahead and get it done and win the whole thing in Omaha?
I believe it was Rick Cleveland. I believe he wrote an article back in the day, a few years ago, that simply said if this state was going to win a national championship, they were going to win it in baseball. Because we got the tools to do it right now, the facilities, the players. This team is the team that has to do it, in my opinion, because they're so well built on both sides, on the offensive side and pitching, and the defensive side as well when it comes to backing them up. If they're going to do it, this is the year because everything is kind of lined up. I know they got some tough things in front of them, but the best opportunity would be this year. And if not, I think it'd be quite devastating.
I agree with you. I couldn't agree more because as proud as this Mississippi State program is and as great of a team as they've had, even the 85 team, with Palmero and Clark and Brantley, I think you're right. This is the most complete team that Mississippi State baseball maybe has ever put on the field, and certainly taken to Omaha. We've talked about that all season. Starting pitching, hitting, bullpen, it's all there, and they have the experience from having been there a year ago. When this Mississippi State program, when you look at it on paper, it is one of the top baseball programs in the country, bar none, in the last 3 decades. And really, in a lot of ways, Ron Polk, who they called the godfather of college baseball, made college baseball in the SEC so big. If Mississippi State had one program that you say they should win the national title, they should be the first ones to win a national title. It's all that's left for this baseball program. When you look at the regionals that they've won, when you look at the College World Series appearances, the great players, the Hall of Famers that they have, it is, it is one of the best programs in the country, except they haven't actually won the national championship. So I think for this program and this school, you know what I mean, that hasn't won a title, I just think it couldn't be more, as you said, sort of right on the doorstep and mean more than for Mississippi State to win it in baseball.
It's right here. You got to take care of it now. Like I said, some legends are playing for this team right now. When we look back on it, years from now, Jake Mangum is a living legend for Mississippi State baseball. You got to get it done now because we don't know what the future holds. Sure, Mississippi State will probably be in this position for years to come because just with the program that they built.
No doubt.
But again, you're here now. We know what happened in the past. It could be absolutely devastating if they don't get it done.
Big story nationally, of course, is the NBA draft and really just the NBA offseason. And Ray, how much has this league changed in the last 3 weeks? We're talking about the Warriors run and Kevin Durant being a top free agent. All of a sudden, the title's in the North. Kevin Durant's on the couch. So is Klay Thompson. Kyrie says, man, I think I may go to Brooklyn. And now Anthony Davis is in LA.
Man, it's all over the place. And believe it or not, I think it's a good thing. Uncertainty at this point could be a good thing for the NBA. You know what I mean? Look, I just said it a few weeks back. I'm tired of seeing the same old thing. Not that I'm against domination, but the Warriors, we know what we're going to get out of them. For the first time in a while, we don't know what's going to happen. If Kawhi decides to go to LA or any other team besides Toronto, the East is automatically wide open because we know for a fact that Toronto won't be in the finals next year if he leaves. We don't know what's going to happen with KD. We don't know when Clay's going to play, right? So we don't know what that team's going to look like. We know Chris Paul now wants out. We don't know what that's going to look like. And I think it's exciting to know for once in a long time, that the NBA is up for grabs.
It feels like we are turning the page a little bit in a new era, although, as we said, like with LeBron, like, you really think nobody was going to come there? You really think LeBron was just going to go quietly into the night and like film his movies and be a 5 seed?
Made it happen.
You know what I mean? So Anthony Davis and LeBron paired together. What's your ideal destination for Kawhi? Like, I want him to stay in Toronto. I think it's such a good match.
I do too, man, because Kawhi's so unassuming. He doesn't need the bright lights, or a huge market. Toronto is a huge market, just not in America, right? So at the end of the day, it's a great fit, man. The way that they play, the way that his demeanor carries. If he ends up in LA, fine. The man has a choice. But I just feel like for the league and for Toronto and for Kawhi, it's just the best fit for him to stay put. You don't want to leave after you win a championship. That's not a good look.
And I also think, and we see New Orleans, I think, kind of build in this way, not just in terms of where the players are and where the power is, but I think Toronto just kind of proved a little bit, you don't have to play star ball. We talked about this at length. You can build a team with depth and defense as long as you have that, top guy. And I think, Toronto kind of was a referendum on the league a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. Tiger.
Yeah.
Didn't have the best performance.
Again, second straight major.
I don't want to clown him, so I'll just say it's not the best performance. And now he's going to not play into the Open Championship. You being the more golf expert than I am.
I am a real golf expert.
Yeah,
you have to say more golf expert. You could just say the golf expert.
I'm interested to hear what are your thoughts on that as far as him kind of taking a break and saying, I'm not going to play until the bright lights are on.
I think it's surprising, and I think it's a bit of a cause for concern because when you talk about Tiger Woods, everything his whole career has been a script. Yeah. Everything that Tiger does has been studied and plotted and measured, and this seems more like a reaction. I think Tiger is maybe a little surprised at how tired he is and, kind of the shape that his game is in after Augusta. I mean, it wasn't very good at PGA, and you said, okay, well, you expect that at Bethpage Black after the Masters. But a lot of people felt that he was going to contend and be a real factor at Pebble Beach, and he never really was. And now he says, I'm not playing until the Open Championship, and where are you going to play? Well, I'll play at home, as Tiger said. And I just think, Ray, the fatigue is certainly a question. But for me, this has been Tiger's deal for a while, right? I'm only going to play the majors. I'm only going to play the big events. I don't know that his game is good enough, quite frankly, if he doesn't play. If he takes the game that he had at Pebble Beach and shows up in Northern Ireland a month ago, it's not happening there either. So I think that's the bigger concern for Tiger. The fatigue, but is he ultimately good enough anymore where he can just play the major schedule?
Those were honestly my notes, man. The thing that I took away is I was one of those folks that said, after he got the monkey off his back, right, for the Masters, that man, full speed ahead.
I thought so too.
Well, maybe not, because it's like you said, man, I think fatigue is a factor. I also think that his game is not as elite as it used to be, not compared to what the guys have caught up to him.
Absolutely.
Right? And
it's
surpassed him at this point.
Now.
Let's just be honest. They have surpassed Tiger Woods now. I do think that he is worried about his body holding up throughout the entire season. So maybe that's why he isn't playing in every single match. But at the end of the day, facts are facts. Tiger Woods is not one of the elite golfers anymore, and I think he realized that and doesn't want to be out there exposed.
I think he is one of the elite golfers still. When you look at what he's done and the way he strikes the ball and some of the rankings, I just think it's a much tougher deal now. And Gary Woodland, a great example. I mean, Gary Woodland matched what Tiger did, and we're talking about Gary Woodland. You know what I mean? Back there at Pebble Beach. Look, I'm fired up for the U.S. Women's National Team and the Women's World Cup. I love soccer, and I love watching the women play soccer, especially with this U.S. National Team. Are you as invested as I am? Like, how on board are you?
The only time that I'm invested in soccer, World Cup, all right, and the Olympics. The only time. So you got me. This is good. This is good. I understand the true domination that is U.S. women's soccer because they are the best team in the world.
Defending champions. Ranked number one.
I know they got a lot of flack for the way they were celebrating every single goal in the match versus Thailand, right? But at the end of the day, they expect to be at this point. I know that. So at the end of the day, the competition knows that because I'm casual in this instance. The domination that they have put forth thus far, I expect it to continue.
One thing that you will see in this World Cup, and kind of like we're talking about Tiger a little bit, the women's game in soccer is so has progressed so much, than when it was 20 years ago, when it was the USA and China and a few other nations just kind of running roughshod. Like we saw what the USA did to, Chile and the like in the opening match. But it is a different landscape now. But for me, anytime you can put the red, white, and blue on, chant USA, USA, and root for one of the best and really most compelling teams in the country, right? And the thing about the U.S. women, like we've talked about a little bit with Tiger Woods, and we just talked about, the field has gotten so much better because of the impact that they've made. Used to be it was USA and China and a few other countries just running roughshod over people. I know they did that in the opening matches, but we've seen so many classic battles as you get into the final stages of the World Cup and the Olympics with the USA and Japan and Germany and Brazil and what have you. So I'm excited for the tournament as it goes forward, but also the girls are so fun to watch. I mean, anytime you get a chance to put on the red, white, and blue, chant USA, drink a few beers, and like watch literally the best women in the world, I get into it all the way. Like I'm really excited about the U.S. Women's World Cup, and it's kind of like we talked about with the Mississippi State women. They so obviously enjoy the game and play with so much fun. They are fun to watch and kind of, I think, are a little infectious in the way you get into it.
And also, there's so many stars on that team.
Absolutely.
To watch them sacrifice a part of themselves to be a part of the greater good. I'm sounding like a coach right now, but it's true. They all get together. They're all stars in their own right, but they get together and they dominate. I think for me, that's why it's so compelling to watch people who are the best of their craft bring it all together and just absolutely dominate on the pitch.
Well, look, we hit all the big stories and starters here in the Sports Lounge from Mississippi across the nation and this week across the world. We're going to talk about the U.S. Women's World Cup. Coming up, table for two, deep dish. Brett Dawson with the Athletics going to join us. Don't miss that conversation, Brett. One of the best guys doing it. Can't wait to talk NBA with Brett and some more great stuff. A little game time as well coming up. Sports Lounge. He's Ray. I'm John.
Get in the game in the Sports Lounge. Online, on screen, every week. Follow us online at Bash Brothers Media.
Hanging out in the Sports Lounge, he's John, I'm Ray. Got to give a shout out to the crew, of course. The man who always keeps us in line, at least I think he does.
There you go.
Hack and Hank,
Sure.
right? You got Josh the Juice on the ones and twos, and who else do we have in the Sports Lounge?
ISO!
My man.
ISO Joe, about to bring Joe in here for our Table for Two segment, of course, the Sports Lounge, all kinds of fun, the big stories in Mississippi and across the nation, but fun and great talk and a lot of laughs, a lot of insight, the way sports talk is meant to be. So let's bring in ISO Joe right now. We got a fun Table for Two this week. Joe, tell us the game and let's see what we got.
Yeah, so I give you guys three choices and you guys got to pick two to stay at your table with you. Okay. So let's start it off with a little bit NBA draft because we got that coming up real soon this week. So we're going to go with the biggest draft bust. Darko Milicic, Greg Oden, and Kwame Brown.
I'm going to go first.
Please do.
I'm going to go first. Darko got to get out of there because, man, I don't even remember Darko. Like, I don't even remember him playing. These other two guys I remember seeing on the court.
Okay.
Darko, don't even remember.
Okay.
Kwame Brown because he was the number one pick. Jordan ruined him a little bit, so I want to give him a little bit of a pass, but just never, ever, ever measured up to anything. I'm gonna say Greg Oden gets a pass because of injuries, and just the fact that I think he actually averaged like 11 points one season, and these other guys never even busted the 10 spot. So Kwame Brown.
Yeah, like what did you just do? Like, so which one? So Kwame Brown for sure, but like.
I want to kick them both out, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna say Greg Oden and Kwame Brown. So Darko.
It's kind of like a reverse here.
It's
we
a reverse,
we want the worst bust at the table for
because
two.
nobody deserves credit in this case.
Well, let me Let me take a stab at it. Like, here's why I'm gonna say Darko is not one of the biggest busts that I want at the table because like. Darko ended up being a decent player. Like, he actually played and was solid, but it was the guys that he went around. It was LeBron, Carmelo, Wade, and Bosh. Like,
so we're measuring up against him.
If he had gone after Anthony Bennett, it wouldn't have been so bad. But, like, it was because of where, like, Darko, it was because of who he was around. And, like, Greg Oden, you know, it's the injuries. As you said, like, Greg Oden, when he first started out, was going to be a dominant player. And, like, the injuries, you know, did he end up being a bust with Kevin Durant behind him? Sure, but I don't think anybody in their right mind would have not taken Greg Oden and it was the injury. So I'm going to go with Kwame Brown because he sucked.
He did.
He was terrible.
He was.
He was a high schooler who said, like, you're not going to regret taking me, and all anyone did was regret it every time he stepped on the floor.
Every time you say his name.
But wait a second, that's only one at my table. So who's the other one? I'm about to blow this one up. We need to bring in, no, you'll like this one. We need to bring in Sam Bowie in the 1985 draft. I knew you'd appreciate this because, look, Sam Bowie was like a solid player, but when you are taking over Michael Jeffrey, Jordan, you got to make it in the table for 2 for the biggest draft bust. I mean, like, Sam Bowie was a better player than Kwame Brown and, like, even Darko Milicic. But, like, of the all-time, like, you passed up that guy for this guy?
For that guy,
it was Sam Bowie. I mean, Jay-Z put it in the song. You know what I mean? Y'all are Sam Bowie. I'm all for real.
Both the Trailblazers took Greg Oden and Sam Bowie. Think about that for a minute. Kevin Durant, Jordan on the table.
And probably still haven't recovered. But yeah, anytime like you go and like Michael Jordan was on the table and you didn't take him for Sam Bowie? Like Sam Bowie and Kwame Brown for sure.
Yeah, that's not too good of a draft history. But I'll tell you some guys who did make some good history. And let's talk about the best Diamond Dogs. So we got Rafael Palmeiro, Will Clark, and Jonathan Papelbon.
Go ahead and knock this one out, and I may surprise some people here. I'm going to go with Will Clark, Will the Thrill, like multiple-time All-Star, one of the great lefty hitters and swings in the league. I think a little underrated in terms of his stature in the game because the San Francisco team that he was on was never really good. The Texas team that he was on was never really good. I remember when Will Clark came back for the St. Louis Cardinals. He was like 38, 39, and just raked for a while when Tony La Russa was there. So I'll go with Will Clark, and I'm going to go with Jonathan Papelbon here and leave Rafael Palmeiro out. Now, Palmeiro being a 500 home run guy, okay, I'm not going to say like it's because of the asterisk by his name and the Mitchell report and all of this, but that is a conversation with Rafael Palmeiro. But I think Jonathan Papelbon, like, put this into perspective, 368 saves. That's 10th all time in all of Major League Baseball. Jonathan Papelbon had 368 saves. 2.44 ERA in his career that spanned 12 years, 6-time All-Star, World Series champion. As much as we talk about that 85 group and the two closers from that team, Jeff Brantley and Bobby Thigpen, it's actually Jonathan Papelbon. When you take the resume all told, like, he's the guy that's got to be at the table for Bulldog greats, Papelbon and Will Clark.
I cannot believe that I'm agreeing with this guy, man. I'm with you wholeheartedly. Will Clark, for everything you mentioned, just a natural hitter. Not that Rafael Palmeiro is not, but every time I think of Palmeiro, I think about him pointing the finger at Congress and saying, you know, just dictating to them the things that he did not do, whether he did them or not. At the end of the day, that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. Dude, Jonathan Papelbon, when he was on with the Red Sox, lights out. When he came into the game in the 9th or even the 8th sometimes, forget about it. You're not getting on base. You're definitely not scoring runs, and you may not even make contact. That's how legit he was in that run during the 2000s with the Red Sox.
And won a big World Series with them.
I won a big World Series with them. So at the end of the day, absolutely, Jonathan Papelbon and Will Clark are the Diamond Dogs at my table.
And you talk about that iconic image real quick, Rafael Palmeiro pointing the finger at Congress. It's John Papelbon with the cigar and the Bulldog for College Game Day. Like, how could he not go with that one?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would have been upset if either of you left off Papelbon as a Yankee fan. I mean, he scarred me for a little while. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but fair enough. It's like pretty sacrilegious to like not leave to not have Rafael Palmeiro, the 500 home run guy on there.
Yeah, with all things considered, though. But
in respect there, like what?
Let's talk a little bit of U.S. women's soccer. You know, the World Cup is right now, so let's talk about some U.S. women's greats: Mia Hamm, Brandi Chastain, and Alex Morgan.
Ooh, this is a good one.
It is a good one. It is a good one. Mia Hamm is like the reason that I didn't even know about women's soccer to begin with. The '99 World Cup is when I kind of heard her name coming about, and just the domination that she displayed. Also the grace and the character that she displayed. She was a true ambassador of the sport, which is kind of what drew me in. Alex Morgan is absolutely dominating the sport right now, right? But at the end of the day, we cannot forget Brandi Chastain taking off the jersey. We had a conversation before this but just her taking off the jersey and as a young man, but also as a fan.
You talk about a seminal moment in American sports.
That is ingrained in my brain. So if nothing else, she's an icon for the sport. So Brandi Chastain, Mia Hamm. No disrespect to Alex Morgan, she's phenomenal, but those two.
And that's the point of the segment. I mean, they're all good choices. We got to pick two to be at the table. And I'm going to agree with you, Ray, wholeheartedly. That '99 U.S. women's team is solidified as one of the great sports teams in American history. Mia Hamm, ambassador is a great word, even now, what she's done for the women's game. But most people would probably say Mia Hamm is the greatest women's soccer player of all time. As good as Carly Lloyd is right now, she's a name that probably should have been here. And Alex Morgan, like, I think the top goal scorer now, you know, in history, what she does from the striker position. But again, the impact, the cultural phenomenon of like Brandi Chastain's moment, you know, hitting the winning free kick, the winning penalty kick to win, and it was in the Rose Bowl, and then that that famous image. I'm with you. That's ingrained in my head forever, as so many people of our generation. Mia Hamm and Brandi Chastain, the 99ers, as they say.
Are we going to disagree at any point in this?
I
don't know. We'll see. Let's see.
Draft Bus was fun, man.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, go
we
ahead.
got another one coming up. So you're talking about things that are ingrained in people's minds. You know, there's a lot of football storied programs out there. So let's talk about the most coveted or best football jobs. And we're talking Texas, USC, Notre Dame, and Miami.
I believe we're going to split right here. I'll go ahead and go first.
Okay.
I want you to close out the last two,
All
actually.
right.
I'm going to say Texas and USC get a seat at my table. All right. Notre Dame, if you're the head coach of Notre Dame, you already know you're going to lose. You may win 9 or 10 games, and you'll probably get the national championship because you know that you're Notre Dame. You got your own television station, blah, blah, blah. But you're going to get smoked in the championship if you make it. With Miami, I feel like there's unrealistic expectations. You think you're still in the late 80s or the early 90s.
Yeah, sure.
Or even the 2000s with the Air Reed squad, but you're not. You play in the ACC with Florida State and Clemson are going to be the benchmark. Texas, they will give you whatever you want. And you don't have to win but 8 or 9 games, and they'll be oh yeah, we're back. We're back. And at USC, dude, it's LA. Again, if you win 9 or 10 games, you're set for life. So give me Texas, give me USC, because there's too much pressure at those other 2 spots.
Ray, I'm going to hate to say it, or maybe I'm glad to say it. I agree with you again.
Wow, okay, all right.
For the same reasons, I think you're spot on. When you talk about these jobs, Texas, USC, Notre Dame, Miami, they were the powers.
Yeah, no question.
Back in the day, before we had the sports lounge, before there was even the internet, before you even the AOL dial-up, you know what I mean? That was that era. But I think that if you want to talk about what job can still get there today, what job can still win a national championship and do it multiple times, I think it's Texas and USC because of your recruiting base for one, the conferences that they play in another. Notre Dame, they have an easy path, but they just don't have the talent.
No.
I mean, we've seen it time and time again. Notre Dame, when you play against the big boys, you're going to get boat raced. And Miami, when you talk about the facilities and the pressure and the expectations there and the way Florida has changed so much, they can still recruit at Miami. But I think there's just a lot more work to do. I think in Miami, I think Texas and USC with the right sort of people in place, you still have the talent and the resources in the path to win a national championship.
We're going to split right here, I guarantee you.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's see it. We got 3 more choices, one more table for 2 option here, and it's world event, the best, world competition. So World Cup, Olympics, and Ryder Cup.
Here we go. Go ahead and tell you right now. Give me World Cup, give me Olympics. I do not need the Ryder Cup. Here's why. The World Cup, I just told you, man, I don't watch soccer at all. But at the end of the day, I'll watch the World Cup because I'm invested in my country. I'm invested in superstars coming together for a common cause. And just the excitement of it. You watch the other nations get together in the way they rah-rah for their country, their nation. Olympics, again, you're getting together. It's all about your nation. It's all about some of the best athletes in the world in different events. It only happens 4 times a year like the World Cup, so you're waiting on that moment. The Ryder Cup, I don't want to watch the USA lose over and over again. And every time I turn on the Ryder Cup, I'm just sitting there
they're just getting waxed.
They're just getting blasted. And I don't want to watch that. Hey, in the Olympics and the World Cup, we're going to win. USA all day. In the Ryder Cup, somebody's just gonna come in and just take us to the woodshed. But I know you're gonna slide on this one. Go ahead.
I'm gonna go with the World Cup, obviously, because it is the biggest event in the world. It's the most popular sport in the world, and I love soccer. USA or not, even when the USA wasn't in this last World Cup, it's so exciting. Everyone comes together. I love the soccer games because they move, man. No commercials. It's all pretty simple. It's right there in front of you. So I go with the World Cup. The Olympics, you can keep your hurdling and your long jumping and your curling and skydiving and whatever the hell they're rolling out. Ping pong, wrestling. Who knows what they're making in Olympic sports? I don't know, man. It's you don't even know. It's you can miss me with all that, man. I like the Olympics, the track and field. I don't even know what the sports they're playing sometimes. You're where these countries are, man. I don't know, man. I'm gonna go with the Ryder Cup all day, obviously. I think the Ryder Cup is just getting bigger and bigger. Yeah, I'm going to go with where I was trying to think of more sports that weren't in the Olympics and throw them under the bus.
But you are tired of watching U.S. get blasted in the Ryder Cup, though, right?
Yeah, but I think that gives you I think the stakes in the Ryder Cup are really high right now, like in a way that they weren't even 20, 30 years ago, because, right back in the day, it was flipped.
Yeah.
It was Europe that never won and wasn't even close. Sure. And then Seve Ballesteros and those groups came in and changed things for the Europeans. And I think that is what has given the Ryder Cup so much juice, is that now, like, the Europeans in that squad, like, they really match up and then some. And so I think there's been a resurgence because of that, competition and the fact that the U.S. does just get scraped, it seems like, every time. Certainly they go to Europe. But look, they're all fun, man. We're ready for some summer fun. Like, I like the Olympics,
no
man.
Doubt, no doubt. All three of those are phenomenal events, man.
Yeah,
I picked just simply because at the end of the day, I don't like to see us get blasted on the golf course. At the end of the day, I know we got a shot in these other two.
U.S. women certainly rolling. It's not like the men do anything great in the World Cup. It's like we find a way to lose to Ghana in the knockout round, every 4 years. Well, look, we're always doing a great job here in the Sports Lounge. ISO Joe, good to make an appearance. Hack and Hank, Josh the Juice. Hack and Hank said that's a golf show only. Like, you as our nickname guy, we need, I think, something else.
Too easy.
Yeah.
Get with us next week. Don't even worry about it. Just tune in next week. Enjoy this one, but tune in next week. He'll have a name by then for sure.
Sugar Ray Coleman, I'm John Wiener, and this is the Sports Lounge. Stay with us.
You are in the Sports Lounge, Mississippi's place for sports.
Hanging out in the Sports Lounge, I'm John Wiener with Ray Coleman. It's a huge week in the NBA, and happy to welcome in right now one of the best guys covering the league with The Athletic, Brett Dawson. Get him on Twitter at @BDawsonWrites. Brett, thanks for joining us tonight. How you doing, man?
Good. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Brett, it's good to catch up with you again. And when you talk about Anthony Davis, you've covered Anthony since you were covering the Kentucky Wildcats when he was there, and then covered him certainly in New Orleans with the Pelicans, and now he's headed to the Lakers in the blockbuster trade. What stands out to you as it relates to Davis with how this whole thing went down?
Well, I think what stands out to me the most, and it's not really surprising if you know AD, is just how absent he kind of was from all this. Everything was kind of, you had this report and that report, and you had Rich Paul being pretty outspoken and pretty public, and that's sort of how he moves relative to other agents. But not a whole lot from Anthony Davis. Some weird mixed message press conference or media opportunities. There was the "That's All Folks" T-shirt, and he said that he didn't pick out the shirt. He just sort of stayed in the background of his own story, and he's done that sometimes because AD likes to be liked, I think, and so I just think his absence as one of the best players in the league in one of the biggest stories of the season, just the fact that he wasn't in the middle of it quite so much, even though he was the center of the story.
Brett, I've long said, if Anthony was going to be gone, this is a perfect opportunity to rebuild your franchise. You're going to bring in Zion, but those pieces that come from that trade with Anthony going to the Los Angeles Lakers, talk about the depth that can build when you have draft picks and players coming over to help rebuild that franchise.
Yeah, they did a great job. And look, I think almost every time you trade a player of his caliber, and there aren't many, not many of those guys get traded, but almost every time the initial reaction is a little bit of disappointment with the return. That's just natural because it's so hard to get return on a guy like Anthony Davis. And look, they didn't get a player. There's not a player in that haul that you say that's a good best piece to get for Anthony Davis, right? There is no good best piece.
Right.
But they're going to control the Lakers draft for so long. And who knows how good those picks will be. But they've got these picks. And not only do they have picks, it's not just about players. That's about promise and what you can do with those things, packaging them to other teams. You've got all these choices now. You've got the 4 pick, and maybe you don't even like a player there, but you might be able to get a more established player. So you've got a whole lot of stuff you can do. And this is great flexibility to get out of AD if you're not going to get a star player, which they were probably never going to get.
And Ray, I told somebody, we said, look, it feels like, kind of spare parts and scrap heap.
Yeah.
Like the Lakers aren't going to miss any of those guys at the end of the day. But of course, one guy coming to New Orleans that'll make a huge difference, we think, is Zion Williamson. Brett, the college game so well, that city so well. How do you think it will ultimately go? The expectations, Mount Zion, all of that are through the roof. How do you think it will ultimately be as a match, Zion Williamson in New Orleans?
It'll be interesting. The city, I think, wants to embrace basketball. There's at least a certain segment of it does. Look, it's never going to be football. We know that. It's never going to be the Saints. It's never going to be LSU even. But I think just the year that I was there, they got off to such a bad start. But I think going into that season, expectations were really high. I think last season as well, people had high expectations for what the team was going to be. I would urge, unless they make a big move still to get another experienced player, I think they'll have to be patient. But he's such an exciting guy. He's such an exciting talent. He's engaging. He may not be the most, loquacious guy in the world, but he's real fun. His style is very fun. And so, I think people will take to him. I think people will adopt him. I think that the key in New Orleans is you got to win. And how long does it take them to do that? I think they've got the leadership in place to build a winner. But I think people need to be patient.
Obviously, only 8 playoff spots over there in the Western Conference. We talked about the Lakers possibly being a postseason team now. The Pelicans, who knows what's going to happen with them. What about the team that you're covering now, man, the Oklahoma City Thunder? They've made their moves with Paul George, obviously re-upping with Russell Westbrook. Will you see that next step for them if they're going to be a true contender in the playoff run next year?
Well, it's fascinating. They're a little hamstrung right now financially. They just don't have a lot of flexibility to do things. That said, Sam Presti, their general manager, is one of those guys who's kind of found ways to get creative. I don't think anybody thought 2 summers ago they were going to pull off a Paul George trade. They got him, and I don't think anybody thought they were going to keep him, and they managed to do that too. So they've been known to pull a surprise here and there, and they've got some pieces they could look to trade. They've got some things they could do to make their team better. Maybe they look to trade their draft pick on Thursday. Maybe they look for a young player who they feel like can help them. But they're in a weird spot. I mean, their 2 best players are really expensive. Their 3rd best player is also really expensive, Steven Adams. Dennis Schroeder came in and had an impact, but whether he's a guy that you want long term or whether you'd like to flip him to a team that maybe could use him as a starter and you get something that might add a little bit more value to your team, it's going to be really interesting to see because they do feel like they're in a bad place to be in the NBA. They're really expensive, and as a team, they're just okay. They're getting to the playoffs, but they're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Brett Dawson with us in the Sports Lounge, theathletic.com. Make sure you check out. It's a phenomenal feature on Anthony Davis, and Brett does so much other great work covering Oklahoma City and the NBA with The Athletic. And Brett, one more question on Oklahoma City, but I want to ask you about Billy Donovan because, down here in SEC country, the cachet that Billy Donovan had when he went to Oklahoma City. He goes there with Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, loses Durant, then he gets Paul George, instead. What's your read on his job security, if that's the right word, or just the job that he's ultimately done in Oklahoma City?
Well, I think it's funny. People sort of, it's the NBA, so you're going to fixate on the playoffs. And they had a great run the first year. He got into the Western Conference Finals. He took a 3-1 lead on one of the great teams in the history of the NBA. They lost that lead to the Warriors and lost that series. But he's won 60% of his regular season games. That's hard to do. He's a good coach. It's really undeniable. I think whether he's done the best job, whether he's maximized what he's had the last 2 years, you can certainly argue that. It's inarguable that he's a really good coach, a guy who's won 2 college championships and wins, has a 600 winning percentage in the NBA in the regular season. That guy can coach. So, I think he's in an interesting spot this year. They picked up the option, so he's here for this year, but they haven't done anything beyond that. So did they give him an extension into another year? We're going to see what happens there. I think he's really valued within the franchise. And look, when you have a guy like Westbrook who is a ball dominant and dominant persona player, sometimes your style of play is Westbrook. But I think they feel like Donovan is a guy who I think he communicates well with his players. I think they feel like he's part of the solution as they try to get better and get out of the first round of the playoffs and not part of the problem. So I think there's real value in him here. At some point, though, if you don't start to win in the playoffs, it's an old adage in the NBA, you can't fire all the players. So at some point, you get to a point where your job is at risk. But I don't think that's the status here. I don't think he was ever really on thin ice, despite what some fans might think. And I also don't think, and this kind of follows when you talk about Billy Donovan, I don't think he wants to be back in college. I do think he wants to be an NBA coach, and I think that, if it doesn't work out here, I think his first opportunity or his first option would be to try to find something else in the league.
Brett, the NBA landscape is going to be changing, right? With the
and
NBA
it already has changed. The Warriors out, Raptors win, all the injuries.
The NBA offseason is upon us, free agency, which is just as big as the season right about now. With the injuries that you heard John mention, Anthony Davis changing up, Zion coming in, what does that NBA landscape look like next year, especially in the West, since you're covering the Oklahoma City Thunder? What does that look like with the potential free agent signings that we're going to be having?
Yeah, it's wide open, and the West is different than it's been, obviously, for several years because of Golden State. They might fight to get into the playoffs depending on how long Klay Thompson is out, which is crazy. but we don't know if they're going to re-sign DeMarcus Cousins. And if they're a team that is basically Steph Curry and Draymond Green and the other pieces, that team will be in the mix, but they'll have to fight. It'll be a battle to get in. So I think, they're going to be sort of down in the muck with everybody else. Today there's some reporting by Chris Haynes from Yahoo about the relationship between Chris Paul and James Harden and whether those guys can coexist.
Yep.
Houston probably goes into next season as the Western Conference favorite if everybody's together and on the same page. But if not, we'll see. What happens with the Clippers? If Kawhi Leonard should go there, that changes the balance of power. What do the Lakers put around Anthony Davis and LeBron James? That could shift the balance a little bit. So, the reason the NBA free agency period is so exciting is because of the difference one player can make, not only to a team, but to a playoff race. Yeah. And that's certainly going to play out this summer as we have a lot of teams that have money to spend and we have a lot of guys with the flexibility to move.
And Brett, before we let you go, one last one. I think this will be right up your alley. As we, have been talking about the NBA draft, we took a look back in our deep dish at that '96 NBA draft class. I mean, Iverson, Abdur-Rahim, Marbury, Allen, Antoine Walker, and then Kobe, Peja, and Steve Nash go 13 through 15. That's obviously the Kentucky draft with that great Kentucky team: Walter McCarty, Tony Telk, Antoine Walker, all of our Mississippi guys here with that Mississippi State team. Just what do you remember about that Kentucky team in '96 and that great draft class?
Well, that Kentucky team was one of the great teams in modern college basketball history. They're the kind of they're the kind of team that doesn't really happen anymore, in that they had a lot of NBA talent. Antoine Walker was the most talented player, but Ron Mercer played in the NBA. Tony Delk had a 50-point game in the NBA. Yeah. Walter McCarty had a decent career, but all those guys, none of those guys were freshmen. Even Antoine Walker was a sophomore. And I remember that when Antoine Walker went pro, it was surprising that a sophomore, even of his caliber, went pro, because guys just didn't really do it after their sophomore year back in those days. So that's a strange kind of team. I think when you're around Kentucky, the debate always rages. I think that in the modern Kentucky era, the sort of fight between that '96 team and the 2012 team with Anthony Davis, and which of those teams would have won. If those teams got to play or play a 7-game series or whatever. So, that's a team I just always remember. They just blitzed everybody. They won by a bunch of points. They had so much talent. Just a rare kind of team. You just don't see that kind of team in college basketball anymore. The draft is kind of a funny draft. I think Iverson has almost, I think how good Iverson was has almost been lost to time in a way, because it ended so badly for him. But there's very few 6-foot players in the history of the league were as dominant as he was, and so it's a really exciting draft. But also, it's funny to think about the Kobe Bryant thing. It was considered such a risk to take a high school player of that caliber. Yeah. Pretty soon, in a couple of years, those guys will be able to go back, and we won't see that. We won't see the best high school player in the class fall into the teens when that happens again in a couple of years.
Brett Dawson, get him on Twitter at @BDawsonWrites. Does a phenomenal job covering the Thunder and the Oklahoma City Thunder and the NBA, theathletic.com. Brett, great to catch up with you, man. Great stuff as always. Let's do this again, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man. Brett Dawson here in the Sports Lounge. And Ray, I wrote down a ton of quotes. I mean, that was good stuff from Brett. But a man after my heart there. You forget how good Iverson has been. It's been lost in time.
Perspective, man, with that '96 draft class. Multiple MVPs, right? Steve Nash being a 2-time. So, I mean, the list, the names on that list, Ray Allen, and these are the who's who, the guys that we grew up on, especially in our age range. But just living legends, quite literally from top to bottom, living legends, man, that changed the game for the better.
And speaking of changing, I mean, you heard Brett how wild it is in the NBA, week to week, day to day, and what one player a difference can make, in terms of the move. So good stuff from Brett Dawson. Always good stuff here in the Sports Lounge. We're on BashBrothersMedia.com, Facebook, YouTube, you name it. We're there. Just check us out, and we'll be back here in the Sports Lounge.
The Sports Lounge is the spot for every fan. Share the show for a chance to win a one-night stay for two at Waterview Casino in Vicksburg.
We're hanging out in the Sports Lounge every Thursday here at Bash Brothers Media, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all of the platforms. You can see us, and certainly check out our website for all the great coverage. Down in New Orleans last week, Ray, I'm thinking we need to do more of that Sports Lounge on the road.
Listen, I missed this last one, but I can guarantee you, y'all take it on the road again, I will find a way to be there.
See, you didn't know how much fun we were going to have and how big we were going to do it.
The food alone made me just get a little sports lounge sick, if you will, saying I need to be there. So we got to make that happen again for sure.
Well, look, everything growing and always happening here in the sports lounge. Big shout out to Brett Dawson for joining us. Check out his piece on theathletic.com. Absolutely sensational on Anthony Davis. And Ray, there's a lot of excitement around the NBA draft in New Orleans. And when I think about the NBA draft, and I know you do too, and we'll get into our deep dish, nothing stands out, both from a Mississippi perspective and like the greatest draft class in NBA history than that 1996 NBA draft.
From the top to the bottom, quite literally from the number one pick all the way down to the late picks of the first round. Who's who, future Hall of Famers, guys that we know that we grew up on, right? That kind of helped us understand and love the game. So this 96 draft class has a special place in all of our hearts.
I mean, Allen Iverson.
Wow.
Marcus Camby goes too, who was the best college player that year. And, you know, Camby might be like the least accomplished player of everyone in the top 10. After Camby, you go Sharif Abdul-Rahim, Stephon Marbury, Ray Allen, Antoine Walker, Kerry Kittles, Eric Dampier, your top 10. But, Ray, it gets really good when you get to 13, 14, 15, and go even deeper in the draft.
So you want to talk about value? You go down to 13 and you take a chance.
Oh, high school kid from Philadelphia, a little string bean.
You take a chance, one of the greatest players to ever do it, point blank period, stone cold killer, man. And then you go down a little further, right? Go to 15, you got a 2-time MVP hanging out there in Steve Nash, man. So that's the kind of class we're talking about where from the top, you say you got surefire winners, hits, and Allen Iverson and Stephon Marbury, and then you go down and you say, we're going to take chances, and you end up getting MVPs and all-time legends.
I mean, in between Kobe and Steve Nash at 13, 14, 15 is Peja Stojakovic. And you talk about New Orleans, how good he was there, and Henry was saying, you know, during the break, and I agree, I mean, those Kings teams with Peja back in the day, he was one of the top, 10 wing players, top 15 players in the game.
He was a true 3-point sniper, man. I mean, he made it cool, made it fashionable off the pick and roll, and kind of hanging out in that corner when Webber and Bibby were doing their thing to make you pay if you overplayed those guys. So again, Peja Stojakovic, a name that you may not know on a day-to-day basis, but if you know this class in the game, change the game.
I mean, it speaks for itself again when you talk about not just like great players, but cultural icons. When you start with Allen Iverson and go all the way down to Kobe Bryant and then throw guys like Ray Allen and Stephon Marbury in the middle of it. I mean, hell, Zydrunas Ilgauskas, Jermaine O'Neal, and Derek Fisher were in that draft. Jermaine O'Neal, a multiple All-Star. Big Z, what a great player
Derek Fisher has 5 championships, Joe.
I know.
I mean, he has 5 championships, and we're talking about he's the number 24 pick. And I know he wasn't the main option.
Right.
But we're just talking about accomplishments at this point.
What a great player Fisher was.
I mean, you can't go against that, man.
Well, speaking of the accomplishments and like the numbers, like ISO Joe ran the numbers, and like it is mind-boggling when you look at the accomplishments of this class, Joe.
Yeah, some of the numbers that they put up is insane. So 62 All-Star selections between all of them, 37 All-NBA selections, 4 MVPs in that group, and 14 NBA championships. So 14 rings between everybody in that group. And you know what's crazy about it is I was born in 1996, and a lot of these names, they all ring out to even me. Like, I know them all. You know that Ray Allen shot at the end of the finals.
That's right.
I know that shot. I know Steve Nash's passing ability. Obviously, Kobe Bryant, who doesn't know him. But, like, when you look at their accolades, it's impossible to say this wasn't one of the best drafts.
I mean, it was the best draft. It's not even close. And we'll get Joe to sort of queue up a couple other ones that maybe rivaled it.
Sure.
You know, the top half or the top 5 in the 2003 draft. But, 37 All-NBA selections and 14 championships. It's hard to believe there weren't more MVPs in there when you talk about Iverson won 1, Nash won 2, Kobe only got 1. And, you know, certainly the I mean, talk about Antoine Walker and so many great college players that there were. But Ray, what's also interesting, and it will note, I think, as we look ahead to this draft, is you just never really know. Yeah. I mean, you talk about the guys that were taken in front of that stretch of Kobe Bryant, Peja Stojakovic, and Steve Nash.
So, you know, I look at it like, so everybody is feeling like Zion's going to be a surefire hit, right? And that's fine. So we can compare him to Allen Iverson. It was the same thing with him. We knew he was going to be a hit in the NBA regardless. Say the same thing about R.J. Barrett, John Morant, right? Those guys possibly a surefire hit.
No, I don't think so. I don't think those guys are anywhere close to sort of what a surefire guy Iverson
Maybe
was.
we didn't know that Kobe, right? Steve Nash, right? Maybe we didn't know those guys were going to be surefire hits. But man, when you talk about the '96 draft, Ray Allen was the man at UConn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
He came into the NBA and was the man when he played for the Milwaukee Bucks.
And that was an era where like college players were still superstars.
Yeah.
I remember Marbury.
No question.
At
Down at
Georgia
Georgia Tech.
Kerry Kittles was a great player. I mean, Kerry Kittles at Villanova had such a cachet about him. I mean, and Marbury and Ray Allen were traded for each other in that draft. And Joe, you know what's interesting about it in terms of the difference in time, and you know, Brett and I talked about this a little bit, is you know, Kobe was a high school guy.
Yeah.
Jermaine O'Neal was a high school guy. And because of that, they were taken much later in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild to think that Kobe could go so far in the draft when you look at that and you see him at 13, and it's like, hold on, this is one of the best players of all time going at number 13, which is just, it's pure insanity when you think about it.
One of my favorite one of my favorite jerseys that you can possibly buy right now is the Kobe Lower Merion jersey. The Kobe high school jersey. I want a Victoria Vivian Scott Central jersey myself, to put in the rafters. Joe, is there, what are some of the other draft classes that stick out that could even, I don't think anyone rival this. I mean, you said it, being an NFL guy, this was like the 83 quarterback draft where you had 6 in the first round.
Yeah, if you compare it to the NFL, definitely the 83 is probably the closest. And you talked already about the 2003 draft, that's definitely up there. But how about that 1985 NBA draft where you have Hakeem Olajuwon, Michael Jordan, Jonathan Stockton, there's
and
a
Charles
lot.
Barkley.
And Charles Barkley,
sure.
So there's a lot of names right there in that top half that are just incredible players when you talk about all-time greats.
Yeah, and of course it's the depth, when you look at the 96 draft, like the 03 group with LeBron and Melo and Bosh and Wade, but after that it gets real thin, real quick. You go down here. I mean, Jermaine O'Neal started in the All-Star game.
He did.
For a long time.
He did.
In the Eastern Conference.
One of the best
Derek
bigs
Fisher
in the game for a
at
while.
24, with his multiple championships. Go ahead.
The thing that stands out to me about this list, Ray Allen, I know we get caught up in the Steph Curry numbers, and he will surpass Ray Allen, but Ray Allen's the all-time leading three-point shooter today.
Yeah.
Right? Today. Yeah. That shows you the value that this class has. Kobe Bryant, besides Michael Jordan, probably the best one-on-one player and the cold-blooded killer in the game. You know what Kobe Bryant said about Allen Iverson? We should all be thankful that he's not 6'5".
Yeah, that was well done right there. And even Iverson, one of probably the best pound-for-pound player to ever play the game, one of the great scorers in a league of giants.
That's right.
The little man was a titan. Right. The final thing we'll do here, Ray, that was also an interesting draft for us here in Mississippi. When you look at the Mississippi State guys that came out, Eric Dampier, Dante Jones, from that great Mississippi team, Mississippi State team that went to the Final Four, the Dante Jones stories and
That's how you heard me talk about
the talent that he had, Dante Jones, and what he did for Mississippi State those last month and a half, were interesting. Dampier obviously won the championship, but Lorenzen Wright at the top and the whole story that played out with Lorenzen Wright, and then Othella Harrington was a second-round pick in that draft out of 1400 Mile High School.
It was a good time to be from Mississippi and play a little basketball, man, because at the end of the day, you can sit back and tell your kids and your grandkids as they get older to say, look, man, I was drafted the same night as Kobe, as AI, as Ray Allen, as Steve Nash. I mean, all-time legends. And at the time, these guys were of the same caliber.
Yeah, sure.
You know what I mean? So that just kind of puts it in perspective to show you how special that 96 class was.
And don't forget about Sharif Abdur-Rahim.
Yes, sir.
I mean, he just gave you buckets. Like endless bucket after empty bucket after empty bucket. But he gave you a whole bunch of them. I mean, Abdur-Rahim was put up 24, 25 in the league. So fun to look back at the greatest NBA draft class of all time in 96, and one that certainly hits real close to home here in Mississippi in the Sports Lounge. Well, I tell you, speaking of hitting close to home, Game Time coming up. I wasn't ready for this one, Ray, and I've never played it before.
I was, which probably means I'll lose because I played it before.
Rock'em Sock'em Robots. Look, we spanned the whole gamut. There's nowhere, there's nothing we want to do more than have some fun in here and talk some sports and play some games. Game Time coming up next in the Sports Lounge.
The Sports Lounge is hosted by Waterview Sportsbook and Casino in Vicksburg, Mississippi's #1 place for legal sports betting.
We're back in Game Time in the Sports Lounge, and let's take a quick look to the last time we had Game Time where we played some Pop-A-Shot, and John got a much-needed victory.
16 for your boy.
He won.
Oh!
You won 16-14.
It's a battle of attrition.
How about that?
All right, this week we've got an all-time classic. They're going to be throwing hands, exchanging blows. It's Rock'em Sock'em. If you guys don't know the rules, let me explain it to you really quick. This is a classic game of battling robots.
Yeah.
You power the punches, move into position, and hammer your opponent's robot until you knock his block off.
Yeah,
but watch
hammer
out.
and knock the block off. I like that.
Your block can be knocked off too, so be careful. This is a heavyweight championship of the universe. We've got the rugged Red Rocker versus the bruising Blue Bomber. Battle of the Giants.
We need
it's a
better
fight to a
intros than that,
finish.
man. I need like some real like.
You wanted him to
I'm about
elaborate
to
on
give
all
you
your-
the corner, man.
It was perfect, actually.
Now,
fight, man.
represented in the left corner is my man John Wiener, and he is the bruising Blue Bomber. In the right corner, we got probably the favorite, Ray Coleman, the rugged Red Rocker.
Sugar Ray in this case, for real.
You don't want this smoke, man. I tried to tell you this before we came in.
Yeah.
Man, touch gloves up here, touch gloves.
Yeah, man. Let's do this. So, we're doing best of 3, best of 5.
First to 3.
First to 3. All right.
You guys ready?
Ready.
Let's get it going.
Oh,
wow.
He got that one. He got that
Yeah,
one.
the Red Rocker
Yeah.
takes
Quick
and a
move.
quick
You might need instant replay for this one. How fast
that was
impressive.
close,
I'm
man.
gonna have you like
That was
Roberto
impressive.
Dumont around like no
All right, let's
mas.
go. Let's
All right,
go.
round 2.
Yeah, no, that's me.
Ray took
That's
that
me.
one.
That's
the
me.
bruising Blue Bomber got his block knocked off.
Questionable, man.
No, it's not
We
questionable.
got some Russian judges in here,
we
man.
have instant replay. We can bring it back at any time.
My man
Yeah,
slipped
do
the
that.
20s
Yeah.
under
Why
the
not?
table to me.
Come on.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, I'm moving on you.
See, now you want to get
I'm getting in there. Stick and move.
one more.
Stick
Listen,
and move.
I got to win the next
I'm
2.
about to put you in the mat.
I gotta win
buddy.
the next 2.
I'm about to put you
How
in
you
the dirt.
feeling? You know I like to
I'm
ask
about to
that.
put you in the mat right now.
The bruising Blue Bomber's up 2. You guys ready for round 4?
Sit your down
Oh!
in the mat.
Dude.
Underdog. The
Gloves up.
bruising
And there's
Blue
no
Bomber.
8 count.
Wasn't
There's
even
nothing
close.
but a KO in this point.
Deontay Wilder.
No need for a count. If I could take this guy off and lay him down,
He should be.
that's what it
You
would
know,
be
you talking
right
about
now.
putting Roy Jones to sleep last week? Yeah. Always fun. No one better. Game time in the Sports Lounge. Stay with us.
The Sports Lounge, the spot for every fan. Online, on screen, every week at Bash Brothers Media.
I told you didn't want these hands, man.
You did.
I told you, like, there was none of this smoke that you wanted.
No, listen, no disrespect to you, man. You came out and did your thing.
ISO Joe, tell us the final score.
So it was best of 5, and 3-1 was the final score, and the bruising Blue Bomber, John Wiener, took the dub.
And I'll be honest, like, I don't really even know about that one.
Really?
Like, I don't really even think it was
That's
that
what
close.
we're doing right now.
Yeah,
You
like,
win fair and square,
the
and then
one-
you want to come back and question my one.
The one was kind of questionable, to be honest. I mean, that was just like, it was.
Let it go.
I
Let
think
it
there
go.
was really just a skunk in there. You
Right.
know what I mean?
You just feel like they gave me one just off the strength of not wanting my feelings to be hurt.
Yeah, just just a pity round. You know how it is. But like we all saw like what happened in the
This
ring.
is why you cannot let this guy win.
Coming on strong now as well. It's 2 in a row.
2 in a row.
Getting hot.
You feeling yourself right
You
now,
remember
too.
the Miami Heat, like when
we go.
LeBron and
This has
Wade got back
nothing to do with
together
the
and they were
Miami
9 and 8 and everybody said,
No, this is-
"Oh, what's going
this is
on? Are they
not
gonna figure
like
it
that.
out?" And then like they figured, and then it was just like a cakewalk the rest of the season.
Look at your brother right now.
Yeah, well, he already knows the deal. You know what I mean? He don't want these hands either. This smoke out of here. Let's see what we got next week.
Oh my goodness. We have created a monster here in the Sports Lounge. I got to step up on behalf of the group right now.
Oh, I think we're gonna have to do that again. Or do you just want to rematch and like catch these hands one more time?
You know what?
The wheel has spoken.
The wheel has spoken.
The wheel has spoken.
And you know what? How fitting that you talked all this trash when we get in here next week.
The judges won't help you out next week. Like you won't even win a round. It's
Doesn't
going
matter. See, I
down.
was just playing around, but now it's on.
You're gonna be on the mat
It's
again.
on. All right.
Sports Lounge, game time. Always fun in here. A lot of you-know-what talk and always laughs and smiles because nowhere we'd rather be in here than with the crew. We're glad you're with us as well. Josh the Juice, Henry, our director. I keep wanting to say like something, Henry Wiener back there behind camera. Ray Coleman, John Wiener, ISO Joe. Start us off with the parting shots and we'll go ahead and get out of here.
All right, so my parting shot is directed at the NBA with the draft coming up and everything. I think the NBA might have a little bit of a superstar and drama problem right now, and I'm kind of getting sick of it. Kawhi Leonard requesting a trade, Anthony Davis requesting a trade, CP3 requesting a trade. Like, what happened to the loyalty and wanting to stay with your teams and tough it out and fight with your teammates, man? What happened to that?
So I've heard a couple of gripes when it comes to the Major League Baseball and the shift. Right, you line up all the infielders on one side, and Matt Carpenter, recently bunting for a double. At the end of the day, I look at it like this: if you're gonna shift, make them pay, right? Or use the rules to help you win the game. That's the way that this game has always been played. Not just this game, any game. We're talking about the NBA, the hack-a-Shaq, the hacker, whoever. If you don't want to be hacked, make free throws. If you don't want the shift to be on, do what Matt Carpenter did. If you want to call it a Bush League move, whatever, the man got a double off a bunt. I believe that's something that's very impressive. At the end of the day, if you don't want me to do it, stop it.
This one's going to be a little late for me, but we didn't get a chance to talk about this last week down in the Sports Lounge, New Orleans. But this is going to be a Father's Day parting shot because, just this past Sunday, when you talk about sports and what is instilled in us and our greatest memories, certainly in my life, it's all of my early sports memories with my dad. And really the whole reason why I'm doing this today was that love that was ingrained in you, going to the ballpark as a kid, hitting baseballs, catching fungos late at night. I can imagine now what it was like. Like, I'm shot after doing the show. I don't want to do anything but go home and drink. And my dad would come home and go take me out and throw about 200 baseballs and just see me rake ISO Joe. It's a different story for a different day, but it's just a big shout out to my dad and to all those fathers out there. That is what sports are about, and father-sons, and so many times that is where their bond is in sports, and it was no different than me and my dad. So big shout out to my dad Josh, and happy Father's Day. A little bit late, but the first time we get to chime in on it here in the Sports Lounge. And Ray, I know you're a father, relatively new. Landry, your kid, named after Tom Landry, which I won't hold that against you. You know what I mean? But I congratulations to you. I know as I think the only father in the lounge. But how's that going, by the way?
Man, it's one of those things that it puts it all into perspective. We talk about sports and we talk about the we greater than me type deal. Kids will absolutely put that into perspective, man. Yeah. He makes the life that we live in my household worth it, to be quite honest with you. You find out a little bit more about yourself. You find out you got more patience than you ever thought you would have, man, because as I like to say it, I joke around, I have a mini domestic terrorist in my house. And so every day it's something that you got to learn new, man, but it's awesome. Happy Father's Day, belated Father's Day to all the fathers out there, man. Now that I'm a part of the group, I get it, so God bless you all.
Well, you use the words awesome, perspective, fun, learning. So everything that we try to do here in the Sports Lounge. Another fun show, as always. Make sure you join us on Thursday. Of course, the show lives throughout the rest of the week. You can see it anytime at bashbrothersmedia.com. Follow us on Twitter at BashBrosMedia. See us on Instagram, Facebook. You know the drill right now, but make sure you share the show. Tell your friends about it. We want everybody to be a part, and come on in every week to the Sports Lounge. For Henry Wiener, our director, Josh the Juice, ISO Joe on the ISO cam, Ray Coleman, Legend Chain stays here for a week. I can't wait to see you next week. We'll do it all again. The Sports Lounge, Bash Brothers Media.
Thanks for stopping into the Sports Lounge. Join us online, on screen, every week at Bash Brothers Media.